So I am what you would call an AI strategist. Sometimes I'm called a futurist. But mostly I think that my role is about connecting the dots between business value and value for society and technology on the other side. And talking about AI is very much also about the data that we use for various purposes. So AI will influence all industries, all types of businesses, all societies, and our everyday lives. But there are certain industries that I believe will benefit more from using AI. And I think one of the industries which is close to my heart is, of course, health and medicine and medical research. So my background is from medical research and medical technologies. And I truly believe that AI will play a significant role in our future use of diagnostic tools and imaging technologies. And then, of course, the green transition in the energy sector will be also very important for us, both important for the societies, but that means that AI will also play a significant role in the development of these technologies. When we use AI for a lot of different purposes in many different industries, that will also mean that the use of hardware increases. So we will need new hardware for very many purposes. Then when we don't need that hardware anymore, or when we need to replace the hardware we already have, that becomes electronic waste. That is a huge environmental problem for the entire world. But I also believe that AI can play a significant role in solving these problems in the waste management industry. Regulating AI is really, really difficult because nobody has really done it before. So we will see a lot of different attempts at doing it. There will be friction. We won't get it right the first time, but we really, really need to do it. Because if we just let the big tech corporations develop their technologies as they want to, without any limitations, it will be impossible to come back in, say, 3 to 5 years and say, hold your horses, this is not what we wanted. That is why we need to start now to regulate how these applications shall be put in place in our societies. The different parts of the world have started developing regulation in different ways. In Europe, the European Commission is working on the AI Act, which is in its final stages before it is ratified. We can probably expect that the AI regulation will come into force in about 2.5 years from now. Now, Europe has taken a risk-based approach to the regulation. So basically saying there are certain things we cannot do with AI in Europe, prohibited. And then there are certain things that we define as high risk. And this high-risk category comes with quite a lot of compliance regulations. In particular, the need for transparency and the need to mitigate bias in the data. So really, the main focus is on the high-risk category. Now, in, say, the Middle East, they also need regulation. They have different values and different ways of structuring their society. But they still look to Europe to see what is going to happen with the AI regulation in Europe. Because there's a lot to learn, but I think there's also quite a lot to learn on the coming friction that will come with it, because nobody has really done this before, so we will experience friction. We will experience that things don't quite go as planned, and we suddenly see that there are some loopholes that we need to solve. We tend to expect that AI is about these huge main headline use cases, but they are not. They are about everyday applications that kind of just sneak upon us. As humans, in a society, they become natural parts of our everyday lives. Bit by bit. And then bit by bit, we also forget that we're giving away a whole lot of data. And then we tend to forget that all these data, they are stored somewhere. At some point, they will be used for something. This is why we also need the coming AI regulation, because we need, as individuals, to be able to say, I don't agree with that use case. I don't want my data to be used about me in that way. So one of the main issues with the current adoption of AI in our society is that most people don't really understand how statistics work on languages. So when there's something we don't understand, we tend to think of it as magic. But it's not magic. It's maths and stats applied to large amounts of data, also to languages. Now, moving forward, and we look at what should kids learn in school. Well, they should learn a bit more of statistics and maths. Well, I come from the STEM field, right? So I can say that. I think kids should learn more statistics and maths to understand how that can be used on any kind of data, being it images or texts, sound. And then they also need to learn more critical thinking. They need to learn to question whatever they are served in terms of information, in terms of what they read, what they see. Deep fakes is going to be a huge problem moving forward in cybersecurity, but also in how society develops. We could easily talk about history revision simply because what we get out of what we perceive as search tools, but are actually language generators, such as ChatGPT, if we perceive that as the truth, we are missing out on so many nuances of society. That's why we as humans really need to reskill and upskill, not just the kids, everybody. We have a workforce of people like 40s and 50s. They're still going to be working for another 20, 25, maybe 30 years. They also need to upskill and reskill because the development of these generative AI tools is in fact a paradigm shift in the use of digital technologies. If we're going to maintain our workforce of experienced people, we need to upskill these, which means that we also need to redefine education on not just at primary school and secondary school, but university level and lifelong learning. So this will become a political discussion on a government level. You shouldn't look at AI as a separate strategy. You should look at AI as a toolbox. It's a very important and very, very powerful toolbox, but it is still a toolbox. And what you should learn is how to apply that toolbox to enable your strategy moving forward. I often use the analogy of a toolbox that I have at home, a very physical toolbox. In the toolbox, I have a hammer. I can use that hammer to hit myself over the head. Not very clever, it's going to hurt, I might even die. Or I can choose to use that hammer to do something useful in my house. It's up to me to choose. Do I want to become a victim of that tool, or do I want to become the master of that tool? And I believe we have the same situation with AI now. You as a leader can choose, do you want to become a victim of the AI toolbox? Or do you want to become a master of this toolbox? It's up to you. I often get the question, so what do you think our society will look like in 2030 or 2040? So then I think we need to be a bit more pragmatic. My sister has been working in the restaurant business for her entire career. She has a smartphone, she has a computer. She does read her emails, but that's about it. She has read about AI, and to her, this entire AI domain feels a bit like magic. She reads about it in news, she's a bit interested, reads up a bit, and then life goes on. And I think for us who work in this tech industry, tech is everything we do every day. But the reality is, if you just go outside on the street and look around at the people around you in the coffee bar, on the construction site, in the school, in the hospital, you realize that there's a bit of human inertia here. just being humans kind of slows down a bit the tech development. And humans go about their daily lives doing what they've always done. And then they get a new tool here, a new app there, and things change a little bit. But if we look outside our tech bubble, things tend to move much slower. That's why when I'm in my tech bubble, I can think about flying cars in 2040. When I go out in the street and I look around, I think, things are going to take time. Bias is an issue we very often come across in the discussions around AI. And bias is about some kind of preference in data. Sometimes the question is, how can we remove bias? Well, whichever way you look at it, any data set is only a representation of a subset of the world, which means that there will always be bias in your data. The question is, what kind of bias and how much? Reality is, we humans are now standing in front of a huge mirror, where what we see is the documentation, the replication of our own human behavior. Now, if we look into the future, we might think about situations where we want to use AI to somehow solve a situation or create some kind of output, where we also want to eliminate the humans because we as humans, we tend to mess things up. And maybe we can also find applications for these algorithms that can make us humans better humans, because they can help us to show us where the bias appears in our own human behavior. Maybe those algorithms in the future can also point to us and say, well, your choice there was not really unbiased. Did you do something here that wasn't really aligned with the world the way we wanted? Maybe you want to reconsider the decision you just made. One example of that is recruitment, where we humans tend to recruit those who look like us, those we like. It's human to do that. But we need to be aware that if we just train the algorithms on the human behavior, we are going to replicate and amplify human stupidity. I can't really foresee any industry where we humans should make ourselves redundant just because we make a mess out of it. Because it's a world where humans are the ruling species. It is a world set up for us humans. And if we define ourselves out of that world, is that a world we want? I think that's an important question we need to ask ourselves. What do we want the world to be like? What do we want our human future to be like? We should also think about what makes more sense in a very human world, where there are so many other things to consider than just facts.